Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is one back. Welcome on,
Taylor. What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined by Daniel Starkand. And Daniel, it's the show I dreamed we would never have to do, mourning the loss of Vin Scully, who passed away on Tuesday at the age of 94. And I'll just dive in. We throw the term GOAT, greatest of all time, around too much nowadays, to the point that I think many people have forgotten the all-time part, what those last two letters mean. And if anybody wants to know what a GOAT is, Vin Scully is the GOAT. This is a guy who was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1982 and then kept working for 34 years and getting better. He was named the Sportscaster of the Century for the 20th century, and then also the Sportscaster of the next decade afterwards. But even as impressive as those awards are to me, none of them explain why Vin was so great. He announced games for 66 years. He started with the Brooklyn Dodgers before moving west and doing the Los Angeles Dodgers games 8 years later. But what made him special across those years was his ability to connect with people. My grandmother was born in New York. She was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. She was born nearly 100 years ago. And if you asked her who the face of the Dodgers was, she would say Vin Scully. I was born more than 60 years after her, and my answer would be the same. That right there explains why he was so great. If you can span 3 generations and asking people, who is the Dodgers? And Vin Scully is the answer for every single one of those people. When Scully passed on Tuesday, the universal praise on social media was unlike anything I had ever seen. There was no jokes. There was no corner of the internet that was not turned upside down by the announcement that Scully had passed. You had Giants fans and broadcasters saying he's the greatest to ever do it. You had basketball writers, football players. Basically, anybody who's ever been a fan of sports had a story involving Scully, a radio, and their bedroom as a kid. And so what made him the best is that he didn't want to be the main attraction, and yet he was without trying. He didn't need our love and adoration, and yet he got it more than anybody else who ever did it. And he said he needed us more than we needed him. And Rick Monday said last night he had never been more wrong. And so, in my estimation, he was the best announcer to ever call a sporting event, the best storyteller to ever call a sporting event. And honestly, as somebody who feels like he knows him like a family member, he was also the best person to ever call a sporting event. And so, I guess I'll say, as Dodger fans, it's incredibly lucky. We are incredibly lucky for the 94 years we got with him. When you think of Vin, Daniel, what comes to mind? Like, what are the moments or the memories or just the aspects of who he was that strikes you?
I mean, a lot comes to mind. I mean, he's like you said, he was the voice of our childhood. We grew up watching Dodger games. We spent more time with him than pretty much anyone else. We heard his voice more than anyone else. And like you said, it's very rare. It's almost never happened that like someone is so universally loved and not one single person has anything bad to say about him. You just don't see that in this day and age with social media and everything. But like you said, last night it was all tributes to Vin, all love to Vin. There's not one single bad thing said, and I think that just shows how loved he was, and it's absolutely deserving. I mean, he was an angel. He was like they say, he was as good as he was on the broadcast. Like, he was as great of a person off of it. Like, he was so nice to everyone, whether that be his broadcast partner, his assistant, like all the way down the line to the fans. Like, if anyone saw Vin anywhere and stopped to talk to him, there's a good chance you got a good nugget out of it. And he was very gracious with his time. So yeah. Obviously yesterday was a sad day getting that news right in the middle of the game like that. We knew it was going to come eventually. He was 94 years old, but I think it was Grant Bisbee of The Athletic that tweeted like he could have lived 94 more years and he still would have died too soon. And I think that's, the perfect way to say it. Like, he's a soul that will live forever. There's, I guess, we didn't really know that he was sick, but, hearing some of the, on Sportsnet LA last night, I guess, some people within the organization knew within the last couple of weeks. So I guess in that sense, it's good that, he's at peace now. He's back with his wife and he could be, with them and he's not suffering. That's the main thing. But I mean, just the words cannot state how important he was to the Dodger family, to the baseball world, to the sports world, just the world in general. Like, just an absolutely beautiful soul that will live on forever. And I loved all the tributes last night. Like you mentioned, Sportsnet LA, they did a fantastic job. I think Joe Davis did a great job on air. That's obviously not easy, like getting that news in the middle of a game and having to keep it together. I know me just sitting there watching the game, I completely lost it. So I couldn't imagine having, to be on a broadcast, having to deliver that news to so many people who all thought of Vin as family. And also, I mean, I just want to give another shout out to Joe. Like, we couldn't have asked for a better replacement to Vin in the last few years. And I think last night, encapsulated that perfectly. So while it is, while it has been a sad, 24 hours or however long it's been, I also have loved and appreciated all of the tributes, all of the celebrations, because Vin is truly a person worth celebrating, probably more than anyone else.
Yeah, when he left in 2016, I just had this sense that, like, this is the guy that whenever we get the news that he has passed away is going to impact me more. I honestly can't imagine anybody in sports for the rest of my lifetime who I will be as impacted by as Vin Scully. And, as a Dodgers fan, Clayton Kershaw is probably the only other guy that comes close. And obviously, Kershaw is very young, so hopefully I'll be on my way out by the time we hear news about Clayton Kershaw. But Scully, just as you said, we spent so much time with him. More time with him than with our family in many cases. If you sat down to watch a Dodger game, you heard his voice more than your parents' voice, more than your siblings' voice. And you probably wanted to hear his voice more than anybody else's voice. And so it's a tragedy, and yet the thing I keep coming back to over the past 12, 24 hours is 94. Like, this is a guy who lived life. He saw things. He was at peace. His wife passed away just about a year ago. And so it's comforting to know that he didn't go too soon. Obviously, as the Los Angeles community, we had to process the loss of Kobe recently, which has gone way too soon. It's a lot different when somebody's 94, when their wife has passed away, and when he's just lived. I mean, I just said 66 years of doing the thing that you love every day was great. And so the thing I'll remember as I was prepping for this, I was trying to think of the moments, the calls to me, and obviously this is the beautiful thing, and I hope the comments below will turn into sort of a memorial of sorts where people can share their memories, and it'll date all of us, right? Like, there are going to be calls that many people post on there that I wasn't alive for. I didn't see the Koufax perfect game. I wasn't quite born yet for the Kirk Gibson one, although you can't be a Dodger fan without having heard that. I think for me, the one that first came to mind was the Culberson home run on his last home game. It just quintessential, because it's like, normally when a guy's on the way out, you expect him to start losing it. And we've seen that with different people where it's like they're just around because people like them, not because they're actually good at what they do. That was never the case for Vin. But even beyond that, to me, it was the everyday. It was a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. It's time for Dodger baseball. Like, those are the calls to me that define him. It wasn't the greatest moments. It was every single evening bringing his A game, bringing stories, and bringing a sense of familiarity. Like, for you, is there a call that you remember most or that sticks out to you?
There's so many. You mentioned the good one with Culberson. I think the 4+1 game was great as well. Obviously, the Kirk Gibson home run, Hank Aaron's, record-breaking home run. I thought that was an important call for the entire country. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about someone that's dedicated to their craft, like, there's no one who was more dedicated to their craft than Vin. Like, he put in the work, like all those stories he told about random players from opposing teams. Like, he had to put in the work to learn those stories, and just the way he presented them, the way he would tell a story while calling a game at the same time. I mean, and for most of the years, he did it by himself in that booth. He'd sit there for 3-4 hours just talking all by himself, which we know is not that easy. Like, we did our first, playback the other night where we did a live stream during a game, and there was 2 of us and we had guests joining in, and we still weren't exactly sure what to talk about. So the fact that Vin could sit there every single night for 60 plus years and tell all these great stories and call these games, flawlessly is just a testament to how great he was. Like you said, like, the word GOAT gets thrown around too much nowadays, but Vin really was the GOAT, and I don't think there's anyone that will debate that. So, I mean, there's so many calls, so many moments that will live on forever. And to me, I mean, as much as great as he was, like I just mentioned, telling stories and weaving in and out of games flawlessly, he was also great at those big moments, like we mentioned, with walk-off home runs, with the Kirk Gibson home runs. Like, he would call it, And then for the most part, he would just stay silent and let the crowd tell the story. And I thought that, that was just so powerful. And you see, if you look around like leagues today and you watch games and you hear broadcasters, like you hear a little bit of Vin Scully and basically all of them, because pretty much all of them, all of them in that profession, like worship Vin Scully the same way we do, because just because of how great he was. So, just an incredible legacy he's leaving behind. And we're just so blessed that we got to hear him, every night for all those years. Like not everyone had that blessing. We were fortunate enough to grow up in LA to be able to watch Dodger games every night, be Dodger fans. So just so thankful for that, honestly.
Yeah, and as LA fans, look, we know we had Vin, we had Chick Hearn, we had Bob Miller. If you're a Kings fan, I mean, it's those three guys are on the Mount Rushmore. Like it's not those aren't the best three of the best to ever do it in Los Angeles. They're three of the best to ever do it. And not to play the comparison game, but Vin was in a league of his own. Again, the sort of celebration that will come today and in the days to come about Vin Scully, all of it is going to be meaningful. All of it is going to be heartfelt, and it's just going to take some time to process, because this is a guy, again, that was there every day. He felt like a family member. And I know that I'll never feel that way again. I mean, when we put together DodgerHead shirts, the first guy I knew was going on it was Vin Scully, because it can't be the Dodgers without Vin Scully being on it. So, as I said earlier, please share your thoughts, your reflections, your moments, your memories in the comments below. And, as we process, let's celebrate Vin Scully, a guy who lived a great life, a guy who sort of gave people the type of joy that I think many of us aspire to in life. We want to be a blessing to the people around us. Vin Scully, a man of faith, was a blessing to every person that he interacted with, whether in person or over the airwaves, and that's the greatest thing you could ever say about somebody. So we appreciate you joining us. That's Daniel Starkand. My name's Jeff Spiegel. This has been DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. We'll see you next time.